Well, we were all good friends to begin with. Bishop Conley and I have known each other for over 50 years, and Bishop Wall and I have walked over 800 miles on the Camino, so we had a chance to bond already long before this trip. But it was a wonderful experience of spending time with good friends, and so we had it was a wonderful experience. So much so that we had resolved to do it again on a different route, a different path that maybe we can talk about as we continue the conversation. So.
And I think too, when we walk, a lot of times you just walk in silence, and most of our time we're walking in silence, and so there's lots of time for prayer and reflection and all those sorts of things. So it's an ancient pilgrimage route, so it just naturally strengthens your spirituality, your faith, everything about it just naturally does that.
Mm-hmm.
It has the effect of really unplugging from everything, because you're away from everything, away from our dioceses and all the burdens and responsibilities of being a bishop, and we're with these mixed in with all these people from all over the world with all different backgrounds, and of course we're not dressed like this, so they don't know we're bishops. Although sometimes they discover we're bishops, and it kind of causes a little bit of laugh about it, but it slows everything. Everything just sort of slows down. I like to use the example, it's like being in slow motion. Everything just, and you're much more aware of everything around you. People, but also nature and, light and dark and beauty of the topography of the land, everything.
This last time together on the Camino, we started in the city of Burgos, and we walked to a town called Cebreiro, which is where we started 10 years ago, the first time we walked. For Bishop Wall and I had completed the whole of the French Way, over 500 miles on that path alone. But we would start each morning early, try around sunrise or before, and try to be finished walking before the heat of the day sets in. And an average day was maybe 15 miles.
Yeah, 15, 17 miles a day, give or take. Anything over 20,
it's too much.
It wrecks your feet for a day or two, and you feel it. And I think one day we did
24, I think.
Yeah,
it was
24.56. Yeah. I remember that day.
Yeah, between 5 and 6 hours is sort of the sweet spot, and if we get off early before the sun comes up, and maybe 6 o'clock or maybe a little before, we get to our destination around noon, and it's the heat of the day is just starting to heat up.
Because we've walked in August each time that we've gone, so it could get blazing hot in Spain in August, but that's why we start early so we can finish early before it gets too hot. Yeah.
I'd say the last day, that climb all the way up to Cebreiro.
Yeah.
It's long and windy with all kinds of rocks. It's like one of those lines at Disneyland where you think you turn a corner and you're there, and you just keep going up and up and up and up. I think that was probably about 7 or 8 miles, just constantly going up.
Switchbacks.
Yeah, switchbacks on big stones, and it was pretty rewarding when we hit the top. But it was rough. It was brutal. Most of the place we walked is the meseta, so it's kind of through wheat fields.
It's like walking across Oklahoma.
Kansas. These guys felt at home. Yeah.
It's the middle 200 miles of the whole Camino.
It's flat.
It's pretty much
for
flat.
the most part.
Until you get to the end. Until you get into Galicia, which is really mountainous. The last, let's say, 100 miles or so. When we got to Cebreiro, which was the end of our segment this last summer, there was a little Franciscan priest there. It's a beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful churches on the whole Camino.
It is.
And there's a Franciscan priest there who a lot of people come in, and he basically preaches the kerygma. Just distills the gospel down, because you've got people from all different backgrounds. And at the end of Mass, we all celebrated the Mass, and at the end of the Mass, he asked us to bless these little pebbles. and it's got the flecha, or the arrow.
The yellow arrow
Yellow
that
arrow.
marks the path for hundreds of miles.
Yeah. And he tells the people, just, basically, God loves you, you're created in a beautiful way, and everybody has a destination in life, a future. Everybody has a future. And that arrow, which we see everywhere on the Camino, is kind of symbolic of this future, the way. And for a lot of people, you could tell, they broke down.
There were a lot of tears.
A lot of tears. And
a lot of tears.
some of them probably have not gone to church or not even been evangelized.
Yeah.
And so this was sort of symbolic of the fact that, yes, you have a future, God loves you,
A
keep
purpose,
going.
even more than a future, a
Yeah.
purpose, a destination, a direction. One of the beautiful things about that church, it was the church where we started actually 10 years before. But it's like something out of Middle Earth. It's just this most picturesque little place. And the church itself goes back to like the 9th century. There was a Eucharistic miracle that took place in the church. It was a stormy day, and the priest arrived at church to celebrate Mass, and he was kind of hoping that nobody would come, because this is a priest who was kind of having a bit of a vocation crisis maybe.
Yeah.
And one farmer showed up for Mass, and he was kind of grumbling that he had to celebrate Mass for this one farmer on such a miserable, stormy day. And during the course of the celebration of the Mass, the host started to bleed. And so he put it down on the corporal, and the priest himself was converted as a result of this miracle. But people have been coming to this church and venerating that Eucharistic miracle for well over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty.
It's a place too
pretty
where
cool place.
where the statue. Remember, the statue of Our Lady inclined her head, and so the statue still is like that. So that was that at the same time, where it's associated with that.
With a miracle.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
the
great
church
place.
is like Sam, it's right out of the Middle Ages. It's really beautiful, and it's candle lit, and there's a certain sacredness about it. And when you come in there, it's like you're stepping back in time.
So it goes back to the 9th century. They found the remains of St. James the Greater.
Son of Zebedee.
Yeah, sons of Zebedee, John's brother, Sons of Thunder, half of Sons of Thunder. And he had gone there to evangelize, and so the history had him being buried there as well. And so 9 centuries later, they found the remains as it had been told, and they found it under the Field of Stars, and that's where the name Compostela comes from, Camp of Stars, so Compostela. And so that's the whole history. So people have been walking this pilgrimage route for
Over 1,000 years.
Over 1,000 years, and it's one of the big pilgrimages. Compostela, probably Jerusalem, Rome. Those are the really biggies. There's other ones
and
too.
Walsingham.
Yeah, Walsingham. Yeah,
Canterbury. Yeah.
yeah, can't forget that one.
Yeah.
But they've been doing this forever, and so you just see people from all over the world walking this, and
A lot of the people don't realize that this pilgrimage is Christian at its very core, with the apostle at the end. And back then, of course, they thought, in the western part of Spain, that was the end of the world. In fact, there's a little town called Finisterre, which is the end of the world, and they would get to the shore, and they were at the end of the world. So the apostles were sent out to the very ends of the world, and it's also kind of symbolic of what the pilgrimage is about. And there's also, during the Islamic conquest of Spain, the knights would protect pilgrims as they went on their pilgrim way. And so there was a lot of history there of pilgrims who were in danger. But everything north of that French way remained Catholic during those years, and still is. So that's another historical point about it.
it's the intercession of St. James. So we know he's up in heaven. We know he's praying for us, and he was an apostle. We're successors of the apostles. There's all these connections with our vocation as bishops. So I think it naturally does.
And even just on a physical emotional level. It's just it's rejuvenating. It's been rejuvenating for me anyway. Just really kind of unplugging, as you said earlier, Bishop Conley. But it's physically challenging, demanding, but it kind of really takes you out of your comfort zone, out of my comfort zone anyway, and normal routine, and it's kind of a time for a bit of a spiritual, psychological, emotional reset, kind of. So that's been a big part of it.
Yeah, Bishop Hine, did a beautiful movie, actually, documentary called Santiago, the Camino Within. And he kind of delves into that idea of the spiritual renewal of everybody that's on the Camino for different reasons. But it seems like they all sort of have some sort of spiritual connection or renewal or conversion along the way. And we're kind of thrown, too, it's a great equalizer because you're thrown in, like I said before, with all kinds of people. And it really kind of challenges you to try and evangelize with people that you don't even know what their backgrounds are. So
Good socks, good shoes.
it's all about the feet.
It's all about the feet.
But if you can walk, anybody can do it. We had a couple, we ended up walking along the
A
way.
couple from Oklahoma,
From
actually.
Oklahoma, yeah. They were 75 years old. He just had two knee replacements, two knee surgeries. And they were troopers. And
They walked slow and steady, but they
And every time
persevered.
you'd see them walking into the town, and they look like they just started their day. They always, for her, there was never hair out of place, and we were dragging, and we looked like we just walked 20 miles.
It was a kind of a tortoise in the hare thing. We would race on ahead, and they would come plodding along. No, it's all kinds of people, but just it's really become rather easy to organize. It changed a lot even over the course of the years that we've been going, because now you can go like to booking.com or one of those, and you could schedule your stages and find accommodations along the way.
Yeah, there are companies that will do it for you.
Yeah.
When
Some
we
people
first
will even
started,
carry your pack from place to place, which is kind of the wimpy way to go, my estimation. But some people do that. A lot of people do that, actually.
we're kind of Camino snobs when it comes to those things. But I think our first time we went, we did our own laundry, things like that, and now there's all kinds of places to get your laundry done. So you have certainty that your clothes are actually clean, rather than if you do it yourself.
That reminds me of when we would wash our clothes in the sink in the hostel or whatever that we were staying in. And you hang them out out of the window to dry, and sometimes by morning they would not yet be dry, and so you bring safety pins and pin them on the back of your pack and start walking and hoping by the time the sun comes up and gets really hot, it'll dry your clothes the rest of the way. So you see pilgrims walking along with their laundry hanging off of their backpack and
look like the Clampetts on the Beverly Hillbillies.
We're going in 2 weeks, I think,
2 weeks.
To England, Scotland. It's, none of us have walked this way. It's called St. Cuthbert's Way. We walked from Melrose to Lindisfarne.
Yeah, famous abbey, the ruins of a famous abbey, Melrose Abbey, in Scotland. You walk the borderlands of England, Scotland, and then you go out to the Holy Island. And I think there's only a couple times a day when you can walk out to the Holy Island because of the tide.
Yeah.
So you have to know when to do it. And we'll finish up at the Holy Island. We'll stay the night there too.
There's a series of abbeys that are all in ruins, but a lot of the monks who evangelized the British Isles lived in these abbeys, and they went out to all the parts of what's now the United Kingdom to spread the gospel. In the 8th century, 700s is really the height of that, and so those ruins are still there, and it's a way that people do it. It's not as popular as the Camino, but people do it every year.
So our journey is going to be about 100 kilometers.
100 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Which is, if you do the Camino, that's the minimum to get your certificate, 100 kilometers. But yeah, we'll do 100 kilometers. This will be an easier one. Be nice and simple.
Yeah.
We hope. It's going to be
The weather
wet.
will be
rainier.
It's going to be wet. Yeah, it's going to be wet. Lots of rain. Every day I looked at the forecast. Every day it looks like rain, rain, rain. So we get used to it. But it's I guess at the one of the important things at the end of this one, kind of connected to St. James, where he's buried in Compostela. St. Cuthbert and Bede the Venerable used to be buried there on the Holy Island, and that's why it's a place of pilgrimage.
I think just encourage people to do this because it gets you outside, away from screens, away from kind of the everyday life, and it really does put you in contact with the beauty of God's creation and other people.
Yeah.
It's just, I would encourage anybody who's got the least bit of interest to do it, and not be afraid about it, not be afraid to do it, but to take up the adventure.
Yeah, you see people from all walks of life, whether people of faith or no faith, whatever. You see people from all over the place. So it's pretty amazing, and I think it's really, we've done it a bunch of times, but I think it's really a once in a lifetime experience. It's life changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's a great. Strongly recommend it.
yeah. We find well. I mean, I'm sure I should think of some of the people. I walked about 10 miles with a lady once, who she was a physician, and she was leaving her practice in Cornwall, entering the Church of England to become a priest for the Anglican Church in England. And I walked 10 miles, and she never asked what I did. And then that night we had Mass, and out comes the two of us walking out. I think you could have probably knocked her over. Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't normally not tell people that we were anything. We'd be walking along in your hiking gear, and then at the end of the day, in a lot of the villages along the Camino in Spain, there's a little church and there's a pilgrim mass in the evening, and we would usually come out and celebrate that mass for the pilgrims. And when the priest would find out that we were bishops, they would insist that we be the principal celebrants. So we got to meet a lot of people as a result of that, people that we'd been walking with and that didn't know who we were, what we did.
I remember there were Italian young people that we walked with for a while, and they didn't know, and they were Catholic, obviously, and then we're all at this pilgrim's mass, and we walk out with our zucchettos and our crosses, and they're kind of like, why, you guys didn't tell us we were bishops?
You didn't ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a lot of fun.